What's a good way to get my dad to be open to therapy? His way of dealing with things is prayer, and God will help him deal with things. In other words, his dad said, "Well, I'm just pray about it, and God will help me." Right? Um, that is such a great question for people of faith, um, and people who are related to people of faith. Some of you are not people of faith, and this really sounds crazy to you, right? Because you got somebody you care about's got some issues, and they obviously have some issues, and you say, why don't you go get some help with this? And they go, well, I'm gonna pray, and the Lord's gonna take care of this. Um, there are so many ways to go at this problem, and I've run into this for decades and decades. As part of my life's mission was to, I kind of used to say, people say, "What do you do?" Well, partly I'm a missionary to people of faith, because I try to take God's ways to people of faith. And the big reason is a lot of times people of faith are not getting God's ways. Jesus talked about this. He said that in the churches, a lot of times, what people were hearing were these traditions of the elders, is the way. In other words, the people who came before you, the traditions of, and he talked about the pastors of the time, the teachers. And here's what he said. He said, you teach people these traditions, but you don't teach them the ways of God. And I have just been amazed over the years. We talk about it a lot on this show. You'll hear me say, talk about some of my favorite verses that people never hear, that just instantly solve problems. Instantly solve problems. Like instantly solve problems. Some of them. One of my favorite stories about that, and I'll make this really short. Was I was on an airplane one time, and this lady next to me asked me what I did, and I said I'm a psychologist. She goes, "Oh, I got to talk to you about my boyfriend. Oh no, oh help me, help me." And you shouldn't tell people you're a psychologist on an airplane, because you're stuck there. I mean, you can't end the session, right? Piloting is a session. So anyway, she starts telling me about her boyfriend. I said, "What's the problem?" She said, "Well, I just broke up with him. I'm devastated. I'm so depressed. This happens every time." I said, "What every time?" She said, "Every time I break up with him." I said, "Why are you breaking up with him so many times? Better yet, why are you getting back together with him after you break up with him?" She said, "Well, I miss him so much, and I get so depressed. And after we break up," I said, "Why do you break up?" She said, "Because of his anger. He just has so much anger. We'll be doing fine, and then he just is so angry, and I can't. He just he's angry at me." And I said, "Well, when does he get angry at you?" And she said, "Well, a lot of times things are good, but if I don't do what he wants, then he gets really angry, and I just can't live like that. And then I break up, and then I get so depressed, and I go back and do it all again." I said, "Well, you know, there's a old saying. It goes like this. It says, if you rescue an angry man, you'll only have to do it again tomorrow." And I'll never forget the look on her face. She looked at me like, "Wait a minute, say that again." I said, if you rescue somebody that's angry, if you go try to placate them, make them, okay, I'll do what you want. If you rescue an angry person, you're only going to have to do it again tomorrow. It's going to happen again and again and again and again. If you rescue an angry man, you only have to do it again tomorrow. She goes, "That's exactly right. That's what I'm doing. Where did you get that?" I said, "It's in the Bible, Proverbs 19:19. That particular one is New American Standard, if you want to look it up." She goes, "That what?" I said, "Yeah." And she looked at me, and here's what she said, and this is what stuck out to me. She goes, "That's in the Bible?" I said, "Yeah, you should check it out." Now that's the point here, and it's the point of this question, and it's the point that I want to say to a lot of you, both people of faith and people not of faith, because in this audience, we have everybody. I want everybody here, because life happens, right? We all, faith or non-faith, we got issues. But here's what I can't believe, that if you read the scriptures, if you read any of the books I've written, um, with the exception of the business books, because companies don't like to have Bible verses in there a lot of times, so But any of the personal growth books, what you're going to see is every principle that I talk about in there, you're going to find scriptures that teach that principle because God designed us, so he gave us the rule book, right, of how to live. But this guy right here, he has heard he has heard something like this. He's heard something like this. Well, you don't need to go to therapy. That's psychobabble. That's secular humanism. You just need to go to God, and you just need to pray, and you just need to go. Sometimes they'll add, and you just need to go to the Bible, right? All right, well, let's go to that Bible. All right, let's go to that Bible. Let's say this dad is really depressed, and his son is telling him, "Dad, you need some help. You should go to therapy." He says, "No, I'm gonna just go read the Bible." Or he says, "This one's not even doing that. I'm gonna just go to God." Well, if he would read what God actually said, what he says in the Bible is if that man's depressed, somebody should be sitting with him and walking through his pain with him. It says to heal the brokenhearted. It doesn't say tell him to just pray. It says heal them. And Ecclesiastes says it's better to go and start to grieve because grief can make, it says, a sad face can make a heart happy. In other words, if you process your pain, then you begin to get happy again. That's what happens in therapy. If you're struggling with some pattern you can't get out of, what does it say? James 5:16. It says, just agree with each other that you got these issues and confess them to each other. Confess means to agree. So just agree this is a problem. Talk about it. And then it says, so that you might be healed. What happens in a 12-step group? They go and agree. Yeah, you're right. I'm an addict. And they start to process things. And what happens? Then they get healed. It's what the Bible tells us to do. And when I look at all of the evidence-based therapies, everything that, and I'm a psychologist, I believe in this stuff, right? I'm a licensed person. I practice evidence-based therapy. And guess what? Every one of those evidence-based therapies is commanded for us to be doing those things. And so what I would say to dad is, Dad, okay, let's go to God. Okay, if you want God to help you with this, whatever it is, it's an addiction or depression or anxiety, then let's turn and see what he says about it. And then you can open the book, go to my book, Changes That Heal, and you'll see for basically every diagnostic category almost, anxiety, eating disorders, depression, all that stuff. There's scriptures that address what we've got to be doing about these things. And what I would talk to him about is, Dad, I want you to go to God, but I want you to have everything that God has for you. And you don't. You don't. You'll hear a lot of people quote and I know I'm going on and on about this. And for those of you who are not into faith, just hang with me for a minute. We'll get to some questions. But one of the things that breaks my heart is you hear some teachers, you hear people all the time, they will misquote the Bible. And the way they'll use it is not what it actually says. I'll give you the classic example of this. They'll just tell people to get over your anxiety or your depression or your whatever. Well, you just got to know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And you got to know the truth. And how do you know the truth? By getting into the Bible and you got to get it in your head, and then it'll go down those 18 inches into your heart. Well, first of all, that's not how that works. Those are two separate systems. Your emotional system and your language-based systems. Don't get me started on that one. But they'll say you got to, and it'll get them to memorize stuff, thinking that's going to cure everything. Now, I do believe in memorizing God's truths. I do. Obviously, I'm into it. I always talk about my favorite verses all the time, right? But here's my point. They'll say, if you know the truth shall set you free. So The methodology they tell people is just to know this truth. And if you know it, then that's going to heal you. Guess what the verse actually says? You can go look it up if you want to. Jesus is talking, and he says this: if you hold to my teachings, said another way, if you walk in my ways that I've taught you, if you do the things, I've been here for 3 years, right? I'm telling you all this stuff. If you do this stuff, then you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. It is a process statement of doing all the things that God tells us to do. You can't have the life of God by reading about it. You've got to be doing what he tells us to do. And when people do it, they get well. And that's what I want to scream. And so I would talk to him about, okay, well, I agree with you, Dad. I agree with you. I mean, if we can't turn to God, we're in trouble. So let's turn to God. Let's open up his book and see what he says. It says here that your broken heart needs some healing, or it says here that, there's some stuff that's stuffed down into the darkness. It needs to come to the light. Or it says here that you keep enabling our brother, and he's sending you into bankruptcy or a lot of debt, and it says don't rescue him again, or you'll only have to do it again tomorrow. So I'd go with his version. I'd tell him to, okay, let's do it God's way. Second thing I do is I try to get him in a good men's group where he can see other men who are processing life and they're talking about things. See, right now your dad's isolated, it sounds like. And I'd get him into a good group with other men where they're working on things and they're processing things, and they will start to love him, and he can start to model it. One of the most effective methods that I've seen with men, especially, because, and I don't mean to be sexist here, but you just see this a lot, that men have a kind of a little bit of a lot of times more reserved to talk about stuff and process stuff, and I found that women, that's why, I mean, there's stats on this too. It's why, most self-help books, you see, processing issues are bought by women. Our audience tends to be different. We are in, if you look at all the books that I've written and that John and I wrote together and all that, it's not quite equal, but it's almost equal. Um, a lot of times men don't process things, but you can get them in a group where they do, or on a retreat or something like that. Then they start to see other men doing it. It's needed because a lot of times they didn't see the daddies doing it. So it's really, really important.